The Mariah Carey shirt's so fire.
So good, eh?
I like it.
Welcome back, Bandecfolks. You're tuned into another episode of Bandecdotes, podcast holding it down for the underground sound here in Ontario, Canada. If you aren't already, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, give this video a like, and for all the updates, follow us on Instagram at Bandecdotes, BANDECDOTES. We got a great episode for you today. We've got Frank from Monk on the pod today. We're going to jump into an interview with him right now. Welcome back, Bandecfolks. You're tuned in to a special episode of Bandecdotes here on the podcast. Here we have Frank from Monk. How you doing? How is sunny LA today? How you doing?
Hey, doing great. I can't complain. You know, I'm outside on the front porch right now. One, it's sunny, but mostly because I have a 3-year-old in the house, and she's gonna distract us more than the helicopters that fly by once in a while. But yeah, it's good. Good, life's good. It's Sunday. It's a relaxing day, and yeah, I can't complain. Thanks for asking.
So you must commute back and forth to LA quite often because you folks were just playing a couple shows up in Canada, weren't you not?
Yeah. So I'm originally from Sudbury, Ontario. And I've been living down here for the past 8 years. And we try to make it back, you know, at least a couple times a year. And I mean, since the pandemic, since working remote has become easier, we've been spending a little more time up north. And I mean, we were there. Just so happened my sister was getting married in Toronto in October. So I was like, you know what? While I'm there, let's line up a few shows and you know, see how it goes. But yeah, that was funny enough. The LA band kicked off their first shows in Ontario, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, no, I love that. So, correct me if I'm wrong. You moved to LA for like a career change.
Yeah, I mean, I moved out here to work for Red Bull. I do app design. I do digital product design, and I worked on Red Bull TV for about a year, and then I jumped over to another mobile app called Headspace, which is the meditation app. And yeah, I did that for 7 years, and I think probably no surprise when you listen to some of the lyrical content and influences on the Monk record. It's like, you know, my sound engineer at work was joking. He's like, "This is like Headspace hardcore."
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
I think that's great.
Yeah, since you already brought up the idea of the live show, I got asked right away because I'm scared I'm going to forget. So obviously the last track on the EP is like basically like you're leading a meditation. Are you doing that live?
Exactly.
Oh my god, so you're forcing a bunch of hardcore and punk kids to meditate against their will? I love that.
we shortened it to about like a minute, you know, and we're kind of testing it out just to see, like, are we going to lose the audience? Yeah, make them do the whole thing. And it worked out really nicely because on the record, like, I wanted to do an EP because I think like a great punk record is an EP. And, you know, I kind of had all I had to say I could capture in a few songs. But I was, you know, as a designer, I'm obsessed with print and album design. And I really wanted it to be on a 12-inch record. And then the idea kind of came, and I was like, all right, how long can I stretch the B side of the record, and what could we do here? And, you know, at work at Headspace, we always joked about, you know, it's a app on your phone, but wouldn't it be cool to do more analog stuff? And the company was just not a direction they were going. And so I thought, you know what, I'm just going to do it as my own side project thing. And funny enough, recorded that session at Headspace Studios out in Venice here. Yeah. So yeah, lots of synergies there. But yeah, on the live show, we were dialing it back just a little bit.
I was just going to say, at first it was creating some confusion with us because we were like, okay, so we see Monk on Dine Alone Records, and we know it's Frank from Vicious Cycle. So we're like, okay, I kind of understand. It's like, oh, and then we find out he's working with Danny and Romano, and we're like, well, this is perfect. Like, we're big fans of this. And then, but then we hear you're in LA, and then I sort of think, are Danny and Romano in LA right now? Like, what are they doing there? Like, how big time did they get?
I know. It's definitely, I think it's like the most backwards way you could make a band. I mean, we had a record deal before we played a show. So it was, I think I did okay on the kind of producing of it, but I definitely got to hand it to Dan and Ian for leveling up the whole thing big time. They through the pandemic, those guys were doing a lot of kind of session work for people, and Ian and I chat once in a while, and so what, I've been like wanting to do a band for probably a good decade since Vicious Cycle ended, and I focused on work and family, and obviously never lost the love for hardcore and punk, but it just took the back seat, and it's like, hey, Ian, do you and Dan ever jam like any kind of early kind of Toronto hardcore style stuff? He's like, oh yeah, we do that all the time. I was like, well then, I got an idea for you. What if we sent some riffs back and forth, and I basically made them a mood board and a playlist, and the guys came back basically track by track, and I pretty much had no edits, no changes. It's like, this is perfect.
Yeah, well, they have that brother synergy too, right? That unspoken psychic connection, like in a rhythm section, that's just so important. And yeah, I remember even one of my initial thoughts was like, oh my god, like I get to hear like Dan and Ian Romano play like fast punk shit. Like I feel like people wanted that so bad, so you get to utilize that as well.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's been good. I mean, I don't know what role those guys will play in like sort of future variations of the band, but it was so nice to just have that support to kind of get it off the ground, and
get a foundation.
I don't have to. I was able to, get my buddies back in Sudbury to, learn the songs, hop on, play some shows, and it wasn't like the whole arduous process of jamming and what's it going to be called and what kind of style are we going to play. Like I got to kind of make all those calls myself, which was as a kind of art creative sort of control freak, was really nice to be able to do.
What I really liked about the EP is like we listened to the EP. We were covering all the singles, and we jammed Cool and Collected, and we were very familiar with the tune, and we actually did a reaction to the music video, and it contextualized everything for us. Like we loved how like it just made it painted the full picture for us. Like before, we thought it was just like kind of like a rock and roll tune, and like there was not much to it. Like Cool and
a meditative tune, yeah.
But like as soon as we saw like the polar bear, and we're like, oh my god, there's this whole other layer to this song, and we absolutely fell in love with that.
Well, thanks, guys. I think there's a lot of nuance to the track, and I mean, I think it's cool if people just kind of get that it's like just a I'm cool, I'm chilled out, I'm relaxed kind of song over some hardcore music. But the other angle of like there's a slight like climate change theme to it, and this polar bear, and he's far away from home, obviously, and in some weird way that's like kind of how I feel some days, like I'm this Canadian in LA, far away from home, but I feel at home, but there's moments where you miss it. And I guess the other kind of reasoning behind the video was, well, one, I'm a big fan of that Daft Punk video with the dog. I thought that was always like one of the coolest videos ever.
Yeah.
And I basically needed another approach to a video where like I didn't have the full band down here with me, so I had to kind of make a video with I guess just me in it again, and that was the second single. I didn't want to kind of repeat the first video. So I thought, let's have some fun with it. Let's just do something ridiculous. And I ended up giving the bear suit to this guy Jordan in Toronto, and he says he'll wear it at every Toronto show in the future. So if you see the polar bear in the pit, that's Jordan.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I was gonna ask before. So what is your like current live band situation? You have a band in LA and then a like Canadian Ontario band?
Yeah, exactly. I have two lineups right now.
Okay.
And the idea being, we're all so busy. You guys get it. As we get older, it's hard to take that time off work. It's hard to, I'm working remotely, but also have a family. So when opportunities come up, not everyone can make it. And I figured, well, one, there's like the whole border crossing situation. As a Canadian, I'm very familiar with, touring the U.S. is very tough and it can be expensive. And basically, as a hobby band, probably not going to be getting artist visas to tour 6 months out of the year. That's like makes no sense. And so I guess we can kind of take opportunities where they where they are. You know, if it's an East Coast thing or a Canadian thing, we can probably just have me fly over there and start that tour from, you know, from wherever it is. And then if there's a West Coast thing, I have a lineup here as well. So I mean, it's kind of weird, I guess, for a hardcore band, but I think in this era of music, I mean, bands like Arcade Fire, Broken Social Scene, Godspeed, they've been doing that for years. It's like there's like 15 people who know the songs, and they just sort of pick and choose who's available at the time, you know?
Yeah, Green Jelly, or like I don't know if you remember that band. They've got like a whole like army, like literally like hundreds of members, and like the guy just literally he tours, and whatever cities he shows up in, he pretty much has a band already who knows the songs.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I don't know Green Jelly, but I love the concept. I mean, it wasn't also like none of it was intentional. It was also just like, I guess it being kind of my project, and it made me laugh too when I signed the deal with Dynalone. It literally on the contract it was like Frank Bach, also known as Monk. And I'm like, oh, that's the band. I guess it's like the band, but okay, if you want to write that, that's cool. But yeah, it wasn't totally planned that way, but it's worked out pretty good, especially for, you know, not having to like drive 4 or 5 guys, you know, across the country to start a tour in some random place.
Is Ian and Dan, do they ever plan on playing a show live with you?
I think Ian will probably play some shows. Dan's a little tougher to pin down. He's he's quite the mysterious one, you know. So I don't know if Dan will be hanging out for that stuff, but Ian for sure. I think Ian is I mean, what band doesn't Ian play in? He's in Career Suicide. I think he just did some shows with Fucked Up.
Wow.
Yeah, he does it all.
Just about Dan, is it true that he can bang out a song in like 25 minutes?
That's what they say, and those songs were coming back like every couple of days. It's the fastest I've ever seen an EP get written. But there's also, I think, they're so experienced and they've done so much. And you watch that guy play guitar, and it's like, you know, when I play guitar, I have to look at my fingers. You know, I have to look at the strings. When Dan plays, it's just like a third arm. You know, it's just like the most natural thing. And I think too with the whole project, we just didn't overthink it. You know, I've done this before where you spend so much time in the studio rehearsing in advance, like, you know, thinking about every single detail. And I just, this time around, probably because, you know, being a parent, I don't have the time to do it. It's just like, let's just follow the process. We've done this before. We know kind of how it goes and see where it nets out. And I'm obviously really happy and really proud with what we all made.
Yeah, for sure. So do you want to tell us a little bit about like becoming a father and moving to LA? Like you said you moved to LA how long ago? It's funny, I usually check LinkedIn. I think it was 2014, 2015. Oh, okay. So you had your kid after you moved out. Okay.
Yeah. She's only 3. Yeah. I mean, becoming a dad. I mean, and Phil, I heard that you became a father not too long ago as well.
Yeah.
Congrats. It's
thank you.
You know, it's not for the faint of heart, for sure. Especially these first few years are pretty intense. I mean, it's like the craziest thing on earth and like the most beautiful thing ever too. Like you get your ups and downs, and I mean we're probably doing it on hard mode right now because we're in LA. We don't really have any like grandparent support or any other family around to help with that stuff. So that's, you know, but you know, it's kind of we've chosen to keep it that way. But yeah, there's also this aspect of like my kid, like she got into her music classes, and I've always considered myself a musical person, and I thought, well, it would be pretty cool to show her that you don't have to be the best. You can just grab a mic, grab a guitar, make a fool of yourself, and just go for it. And you know, you can build that kind of creative confidence and just making things and making music. And so in a way the band's also been like me trying to role model for my kid.
That's great. What I was going to ask, you worked with Headspace for several years before you had your kid. Did you feel like working with them kind of at all give you some sort of preparation for being a father, or like
100%, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, even before moving to California, I got into meditation through my wife, and I thought it was like ridiculous, and I kind of made fun of it for a while. I was like, yeah, this is also a very different time, like almost 10 years ago. Or now I think it's gotten a lot more of like cultural sort of appreciation. And yeah, just sitting with your thoughts, sitting with your feelings and emotions, and trying to process that stuff. Trying to be aware of your reactions and your patterns and things like that. I think definitely helps, not just for parenting, but really anything that life throws at you. But yeah, also like having a toddler around, it's easy to forget those. I'm definitely not perfect, and it's easy to forget those mindful tips when you've got a kid screaming at you because they want lunch or something.
So with the mindful stuff that you've been practicing, like the self-awareness and stuff like that, have you ever gone like, is it like, have you gone deep into like looking at like Buddhist stuff, like Vipassana and stuff like that, or has it been more just like cognitive, like behavioral therapies and stuff like that?
I think it's a little bit of both, but on the Buddhist side, I'm not gonna like pretend to be a true practitioner of Buddhism. I think like lots of respect for that practice and for that community. I mean, there is a Zen center here in LA that I've given some thought to going to check out and see if I click with it. But in a funny way, like Headspace gave me the introduction to meditation, and it's kind of shaped my whole approach. And the app, the company, whatever you want to call it, definitely tries to be I guess not of like sort of any religious background or anything. Tries to sort of present it for the lay person, I guess. And maybe if I'd gotten into it in a different way, that might be a different approach. But I also don't know, like as a punk rock kid who grew up being atheist, I don't know that I would have really clicked with it in that way.
What's your relationship with psychedelics?
Psychedelics, I mean, I didn't touch any psychedelics until I was very stable in my career, and had a really nice. I always heard that Fat Mike didn't try hard drugs until he was a millionaire, so I'm kind of trying to follow that path.
Good life advice.
But yeah, I think mushrooms are going to be legal in California pretty soon, and I've dabbled with those a couple times. I've got some friends who have offered LSD in the past, and I think a few years back would have been easier to try that stuff out, and I'm definitely very curious to do more of it. But the like being a parent with a kid around,
for sure.
It makes it tough to find those moments, especially like an acid trip probably lasts a good half day.
You really have to make a day of it, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm waiting for grandma to come visit so that I can go trip out in the backyard.
Yeah.
Have you messed with the microdosing at all?
Yeah, a little bit. That's how I got the intro to psilocybin was trying with the microdosing. But I have a bit of an addictive personality, and then I'll definitely be the person who's like, was that a micro? Okay, let's try more. Let's try more.
Sure.
And then, I kind of know myself enough, but yeah. Do you have some experience with that?
Yeah, actually, I took some microdosing this morning.
Cool.
It just helps with anxiety. It just helps me kind of prepare even for even interviews like this. Just to be able to just ground myself. And I have ADHD, so I've always got brain. I could probably benefit from using Headspace. This is just a big advertisement for Headspace.
Totally. Yeah. And I don't work there anymore, but I love the product and love what they're doing.
Oh, okay. So
yeah,
excellent.
I haven't.
We're gonna bleep their name out every time now.
Yeah, I don't microdose or anything. I'm interested in it, but I remember like specifically when I used to take mushrooms, I would have this and me and my like close friend would always talk about like the afterglow we'd have, where it would just feel like for a few weeks we just felt like good, good about our lives, good about people around us. Like it just had this like really good afterglow on us. So I'd be interested in trying that, but I also like. I'm scared of some of the
Yeah.
stuff that's kicking around up there. I don't know how deep into my subconscious I want to go.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think too, like the legalization aspect will probably put a lot more people at ease of like what they're trying. You know, like I mean, there's also this other aspect of like growing. I was mentioning like growing up as a as a hardcore kid, like growing up straight edge, and like I'm not obviously not straight edge anymore, but that those things are like still ingrained in my head, and
Right.
I am very grateful that I didn't touch any substances until I was like in my mid 20s. That was probably like a smart life move. I have a
I,
lot of buddies who wish they hadn't touched psychedelics until they were much older.
I was straight edge in high
So
school, and I say the exact same
yeah,
thing. I feel like I probably
nice.
this was probably good that
Yeah,
I waited till I was at least like
yeah,
19 to start
yeah,
smoking weed and drinking.
yeah, yeah. Your brain got to like a nice mature enough state, like
Yeah.
fully developed, right?
So,
Yeah,
but so in terms of the themes of
sure.
like the monk theme that you have going with this, the idea of like what
Yeah,
if a monk started a hardcore band, I think it's
yeah,
really easy to explain like what like that would mean lyrically, but did you have
sure.
like an exact idea of what that meant sonically?
I think I mean just blending kind of classic hardcore with like what's the other thing we could throw into the mix that would make this sound unique. And I'm sure you guys listen to the that hard lore podcast, but I've
Yeah.
heard those guys talk about and, there's the two hosts, they're in Harm's Way and Twitching Tongues, and they talk about um, when you make a new project, don't go and borrow from other hardcore. Go and borrow from things outside of hardcore. Be it like singing instead of screaming, or bringing in some industrial kind of tones and things like that. So I tried to keep that in mind. Of like uh, the first time I listened to the Cool and Collected track, once Dan and Ian sent it over to me, I was kind of laughing because the intro almost reminded me of like Aladdin's Arabian Nights. Like it almost had this like Disney like sound to it. And I was like, you know what? Like I almost rejected it right away. And I was like, you know what? If I feel so strongly about it, hopefully like other people feel that way too. And then it kind of grew on me. And then I found myself kind of humming it in my head. And you know what? That's good. Let's keep it. So I try to like keep that in mind when making new stuff.
I absolutely love that. That's absolutely amazing. Yeah, and it's funny you say that because I've been uh, like I jammed a new band the other day and
Yeah.
it didn't grow on me and I didn't
Right.
feel like I connected with it, and then I found that I was like it got in my head someday, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
I kept going back to it, and it's like
Right.
I almost have that exact same relationship with so many singles that I've listened to in the past. It's so funny how
Right.
that is, like you just go and then maybe it's because it's something you haven't heard before, that's why you have like an instant reaction to that, and
Yeah.
then next thing you know you're just attached to it.
I think that's it. I think it's that first reaction, and like it's almost too like if nobody hates it, then nobody will love it either. You're just gonna make something that's in the middle of the road that doesn't really get any traction. And if I look back to Vicious Cycle, and I don't know how familiar you guys are with the band, but I think we made some good like classic hardcore punk music, but we were so scared to stretch outside of the kind of confines of the genre. And I think we just ended up being like fucked up mini, like we just were just trying to create music like the stuff we loved listening to. And on the last record we did, which was also like kind of like a themed record called Pale Blue Dot. I think that was the more artistic and creatively interesting work that we did. I mean, also like always found that the music that I've made was kind of too punk for hardcore and too hardcore for punk in a weird way. And then there's like this added layer of like having an artistic vision, which I don't know that like most punk bands are kind of thinking about um, in that way. Not to say it's like a grand vision or anything, but um, it does sometimes feel like I'm kind of like a little bit too nerdy on that side of things. Like it's like Frank, just chill out a little bit. Like play it cool, dude. like I can't help myself. That's where my brain goes. I'm a creative person, and if I'm gonna make something, I want it to, be like a package in some way.
Yeah, no, I think it's so good to have that sort of like layering and like lore to everything too, because like it's really easy to listen to music super passively, right, and miss all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's really easy to just hear riffs and singing and move on about your day. But
Yeah.
once you when you really start to like an artist and you dig in and you find out you really like the lyrics and stuff like that, like that's like a special thing, right? So taking the time to have that like concise sort of overall idea, I think you're right. I think a lot of people, especially in the punk community, you're kind of just in the jam space thinking about your part and your instrument. Like it's like the overall cohesion of the idea is just sort of this unspoken, unnarrowed down sort of thing. So yeah, no, I really like the sort of like thematic vibe to the whole thing. It really opens it up, and like I've always talked about like thinking man's hardcore. You know what I mean? And I think it just fits in there so well. Like reflectionary, like self-meditative hardcore. It's super cool. So before starting to play these shows with Monk, did you travel back to Canada a lot from LA, or were you kind of there for a while?
No, never. We jammed twice before playing the first show.
So you had been in LA for like years? Interesting.
Yeah, exactly. The Oh, do you mean like outside of the band?
Yeah, like just in general. Were you traveling
sure.
back and forth a lot, or were you in LA for like a good set of time?
Yeah, I mean, I live here most of the time, but I'll make it back at least once or twice a year. But it was never for music, always just for visiting family. And the but on the musical side, we only jammed a couple times before the first show, before the first tour. And I mean, I don't know if the pandemic kind of got everybody more accustomed to that way of doing things, but we all sort of learned our parts separately and felt really funny renting a rehearsal space for myself, like just me and my Bose speaker, just going for it, like over the songs. But once we got together, and the guys in the live band on the shows we played were Tom York, he plays in Tommy and the Commies, and he's also been filling in for No Warning. He's an incredible guitarist. Sandro Sancioni, who he played drums in the Creep Show for a while.
Okay.
And they're both Sudbury guys. And then Brady Middaugh, who plays in a couple bands, Strange Attractor and another band called Psych Bike. But yeah, we put together this crew, and we all got together and somehow pulled it off. And by the end of the weekend, it was like I missed it so much. Just that like getting to the venue, loading out, like setting up the merch. I could sure sleep on like less floors in the future, but there is some charm to that part of it.
Yeah, for sure. So like in terms of like the experience, like LA's obviously like a world renowned city. It's known. It's very well known for like its culture. Was it like a big culture shock to move there? How different really is it from like living somewhere like or going to somewhere like Toronto? Like how truly different is it?
I think there's a couple things that caught me by surprise. One, maybe just because I'd never visited really before moving out here, was how integrated like Spanish is in the culture. Like most of like the punk scene here is like mostly like Mexican American kind of community, which is really cool. And I mean, I think there's this weird thing that happens probably just because we watch so much American television and all those movies growing up, like the TV shows, movies around like coming of age and the high school college experiences, which like I never had because like going to college and high school in Canada is super different. I also felt familiar in a weird way to get here because I had kind of had those experiences through movies and TV, I guess, which is like me and my wife always talk about this, and I don't know if it's unique to us. But also like growing up in punk and skateboarding in Sudbury is a bit of an uphill kind of battle, and getting here where like this is it. This is like, this is Dogtown. This is the birthplace of Black Flag. Like it all happened here. So getting here in some weird way just felt like I'm home. Like this is it. This is where I wanted to be. Like I want to skate every day if I want to. I want to be surrounded by a culture that doesn't look at me like I'm weird. Like it is not like I remember going to like the grocery store and just seeing people in like punk t-shirts, and it's just like I know that happens everywhere, but like I think it happens like 10 times more here, where it's super normal to just see like an old punk dude with like a circle jerk shirt on at the Ralph's grocery store or whatever, and you're just like, hey man, nice shirt. Just those little moments, I really appreciate it, because I just didn't have it for so long growing up in a mining town.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
What's worse, the Toronto traffic or LA?
Geez, probably LA traffic, probably.
Yeah, of course.
LA traffic's world famous.
Yeah, it sucks.
I was gonna say, is there anything you miss about Sudbury?
For sure. I mean, the access to nature is something that I've learned to appreciate more as I've gotten older. Friends and family will always be there. I don't think I realized how lucky we were that like many people have like a cottage that you can get to, that kind of like access to water, really, where like out here to be anywhere near the ocean you have to be like a multimillionaire. So that is like super uncommon. I think Canadians in general are just nicer and more I don't know, just more pleasant people. I always joke that like whether we realize it or not, knowing that you have access to universal health care kind of feels like your government somehow like cares about you at least a little bit, or that like we're in something together, and also maybe those long winters, like we all struggle through it as a population, whereas in the US you have like people living in Michigan are living a very different life than people living in Florida, let's say. So it's like you're not really sharing that. But yeah, people here are definitely a little more aggressive, a little more self-centered, I'd say.
There's like less camaraderie.
Yeah, totally. That like neighborliness is not. I don't really see it too much down here.
Huh.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I even found that like when I lived in Toronto for a few years, and when I lived there, like I thought it was going to feel like a really unfriendly place, but it really felt like a bunch of people who were like, well, no, like I'm going to be surrounded by people, so I might as well be good and sociable and like talk to people. Like it wasn't what I was expecting. And I feel like I've talked to people who think that like people in big cities are going to be like ruder, but that's not necessarily the case. Because a lot of people understand in those communities, like I'm here to run into like-minded people, right? So
I'll add to that. Like I've also heard, I've never lived in New York City, but I've heard that the New York kind of state of mind is people can seem angry, but they really care about each other, because they're all going through this like big city thing together. And there's like a thing I've heard where maybe folks on the West Coast are like, they're nice to your face, but they're like mean when you're not around, kind of, you know what I mean? So it's like almost the opposite, whereas like at least in that kind of that New York way of living, they'll tell you how they really feel, straight to you, and they're not hiding anything.
That's true. Yeah, they're very open. They're very open set of people.
Especially their comics.
Yeah, totally.
So tell us a bit about getting started in like the Ontario music scene with Vicious Cycle.
Sure.
Like, you guys were like one of those bands that was beloved in the Ontario music scene, and hearing you were the force behind Monk was like an awesome surprise.
Yeah.
It honestly was an awesome surprise to hear you say that, because it was so long ago that feels like a past life. So thank you. Yeah, I think growing up in Sudbury, like we'll kind of keep going back to this on the pod, but Sudbury's like was a place as a teenager you kind of wanted to get the hell out of there as quickly as possible. And like what better way than with your buddies in a van playing music. And so that's kind of, I would say that was a bit the driving force behind the band. Was we want to see the world, we want to see what else is out there, and we're so curious about other cities, other cultures, and we were lucky to do some good solid touring, not just in Canada, but we got to do a run of Europe once, and a couple East Coast U.S. runs as well, down to Gainesville to play the fest. That was always a blast. But yeah, I mean, also I guess being in a place like Sudbury, most of our band members had parents who had nice big basements that we could jam in, so that was always sweet. But yeah, I think everyone kind of shared that desire to get out of town a little bit, and punk and hardcore was kind of our vehicle to do that.
Was there a venue in Sudbury called the Asylum?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a newer venue, but it's probably like 8 or 10 years old. But yeah,
have
that's
you played
like
it?
No, I've never played it.
My band Hellman, I've played there a couple of years ago, and I'm pretty sure
Nice.
yeah. I was gonna say that's like the one thing I know about Sudbury is like it was a really cool venue. There's like a hotel above where the bands can stay.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, and like when we played, there was a huge hurricane that was happening, but everyone still came out to the show. It was this wild show. So I had a pretty positive experience with
Nice.
the Sudbury music scene.
Cool. Yeah, no, I do think those winters are a little longer than you guys get down south, and I think we get bored in the house. Like we're stuck in the house trying to do something, make some music, make a zine. Try, if I was still living there, I'd probably be podcasting. I'd be trying to do anything I could to just scratch that creative itch.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, we're big components of that on this show. We like to tell people like stop talking about stuff you want to do and just like start doing it right now. Yeah.
Love it.
So speaking of that, so what was it like to just pick up the mic again after 10 years?
Nerve-wracking, man. It was I didn't know if I could do it again, and I didn't sing for super, like I only did vocals in Vicious Cycle towards the end after our singer quit, and I don't know that I was like 100% confident in it even at that point. I was just sort of filling in for the last couple years, and it felt super good to play live. That was really nice. I definitely got some reps in advance, just to kind of not wear my voice out too quickly, and at least just to kind of test the levels again to see. Because it's funny, I remember like obviously I'm not like singing, I'm more just like yelling, screaming, but I've never felt like I had more control over my voice than when I was singing in Vicious Cycle, where you just have that practice every week, and even though you're yelling, I could hit some high notes, like just kind of joking, like around the house, whatever, like singing along to some pop song or whatever. Kind of surprised, when you stretch those vocal cords, they kind of do some. You can kind of get some more out of them. And I was kind of waiting for that feeling again, and once I kind of got there, I knew that I would be good. But we also, like, because our set during this last tour is only 5 songs. Plus the meditation bit, we actually did a few Vicious Cycle covers just to kind of round it out and give us a little more time. So we got it. I think we got it up to like 22 minutes. So pretty good enough for a hardcore set.
Speaking of covers, Olivia Rodrigo cover of Brutal. I didn't even realize it was a cover until like halfway through, and I all of a sudden it like clicked what I was listening to, and I was just like so happy with the way you guys took like what that song is already inherently like a punk rock song. You know what I mean? It has a great little breakdown in it already and stuff, and you guys just like expanded it in a way that I like so. Oh, it was so good. It was so good.
Thanks, Tyler. Yeah, it was like I was chatting with Ian about it, and I had this idea in mind to do it, and I honestly planned on doing it in the same tempo that she does it, because like you said, it already has like a nice rockin' riff to it.
Yeah.
And then Ian had this idea of like he was, I didn't really know what he meant, but he's like, I think we could like pogo it up, just like the pace of it. I was like, all right, whatever. Like I'm like, I trust you guys. whatever you want to try. And that song's the most challenging to perform for sure because it's so damn fast.
Yeah, a lot of lyrics very quickly.
Yeah.
So was it because you were working with Dan and Ian that like you got the intro to Dine Alone record because they're just like affiliates?
I don't think it hurt to have them involved. I think it created a really nice package that the label could say like this, this looks good. We want to be part of it. Mm-hmm. I shopped the record around a little bit, maybe too soon to a few other labels, and there was one that was out of Pennsylvania called Get Better Records, and they're based in LA now, and they put out some incredible music, and we were really, really close to putting the record out with them, but just due to timelines and like my anticipating of playing some shows in Ontario. I really needed a commitment that the record would be out on time, because otherwise we missed the boat and we got to probably wait a whole other year. Mm-hmm. We'll probably do something with Get Better again in the future, just as I love what they stand for and I absolutely love the team there. But it just so happened Justin Ellsworth from Dine Alone, he's their graphic designer. Design community is small. We know each other from that, and he's also like a hardcore punk guy. I sent him the songs and I was like, hey, like here's my new project, and kind of PS, like I wouldn't be mad if you showed anyone at Dine Alone who could who could do something with it. And I think I sent it on a Friday, and on the Monday I was chatting with their with their I guess signing person, and it's very nerdy like technological thing, but we hashed it out over Google Docs in like 30 minutes and ready to go. So it moved really, really fast.
Yeah, that's crazy. Dine Alone has such a pedigree to me.
I was just saying, did you guys press records?
Yeah, we have.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because
we did 500,
got the 12-inch.
Yeah, I love that album artwork. That's you, I'm assuming, who designed that, right?
Yeah, I designed it, but I worked with this guy Jack Rogers who did some of the illustration, and he's super solid.
Yeah, it looks really good.
Thank you. Like you mentioned the Dine Alone factor, and I feel like I got to tell this story of, if this is the last time I talk about Vicious Cycle, that's okay, but because I feel like I'm like reliving it in a funny way, but that band kind of fizzled out in the end in a weird way that I didn't really love the ending to, which you hear this all the time. It's music, this is what bands kind of do. We don't all get to have our final show and have all our friends show up, and yeah, and we were actually chatting with Dine Alone at the time, and I probably let them on to a little bit too much information about what was happening internally in the band. And granted, they were a much smaller label at the time, and I basically had this plan with our other members in the band that we would rename the band, and we had this whole other record ready to go because we were trying to do some kind of that band Silver Mount Zion. I had this idea because they like rename the band every once in a while, like for new records. And it always has like this theme of like it always has something to do with like silver or mountain or whatever. So you can kind of trace that it's the same band. But I mean, I think I basically fumbled the deal with Dine Alone big time by kind of giving them too much insight on the dramas within the band. And they were like, yeah, Frank, you know what? You're giving me a lot of red flags. This seems like a project that's about to like die very quickly. And they were not wrong. It did. So in a funny way, I was like healing a past situation. So when they came around, I was like, it felt like I picked up right where we left off,
And now they know you're going to be honest.
Now we know, yeah, and now I know what to tell them and what not to tell them.
Do you remember what the other band name was that you had lined up?
Yeah, we were going to be called either Outsiders or The Outsiders.
Nice.
And,
Nice.
Like the book, and we did Pale Blue Dot after Carl Sagan's book, and
Carl Sagan's.
If it works well for a book, it probably works pretty well for a band.
Yeah, no, that's good. I love that.
That's the Jude the Obscure logic.
Yeah, true, true.
Man.
Yeah, I've always tried to think of band names, like probably because I'm a designer and I was like more interested in kind of the merch making and the album artwork than the music at some points. Like I always try to think of like almost t-shirt first approach, like
Yeah.
would you wear it on a t-shirt, and
Mm-hmm.
I think this band kind of nails it in that way. It always makes me laugh because like a band like Fucked Up, they're probably like one of my favorite modern hardcore bands, but I can't say I have a t-shirt because it's a bit of a tough one to wear in public,
Yeah. It's a little much sometimes.
Yeah, and we toured. We toured with in Ontario. We toured with Indian Giver, and it's like obviously I get why they named the band that, and Evan is he has such a great like thematic mind for the project, but it was just such a stretch for me to grab a T-shirt. I was like, I don't know, because there's something else I can buy. I don't think I can wear the shirt.
Yeah, especially in being somewhere like LA, you see someone
Yeah.
wearing a shirt like that, like just that's a conversation you just don't want to open up.
Yeah, so I'm gonna get beat up.
Did you meet the famous anvilogist, self-help spokesperson, Dr. Jean Perez?
Yeah, we did. We did. Dr. Perez. I mean, that was a whole story. I'm guessing you read that on the site.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is a special person. Uh, I was. I set up some time on a weekend with my buddy Connor down here, who we were trying to film the video for the first single for Nothing Matters, and basically what came out of that was a bunch of embarrassing iPhone footage that never made it to an actual video because we, like many DIY videos, you kind of like, I don't know if it's good enough to keep. But the one amazing thing that came out of that day was, as we were walking around my neighborhood, trying to film little clips of stuff, an SUV pulled up, and it was this older black woman who had she was like all kind of like blinged out with like a cowboy hat and everything. I was like, who is this person? Like she had a whole aura about her, and she just started like almost like talking to us like almost preacher like from the car. She had all these like sayings and like kind of like really like trying to engage with us. And we like went up like, hey, what's going on? What's up? And she was there with her daughter who was like explaining to us, hey, like I'm Dr. Jean Perez, and we're here like kind of doing it was a Sunday, so I think she was kind of doing her like sort of Sunday service through the neighborhood, kind of like talking to people in the area, being so like community oriented, and yeah, we got to chatting and we explained a bit what we were doing, and she just thought it was so cool that we were out in public trying to make something creative happen. And I'm not sure she fully got the music or the genre, but at one point, Dr. Perez reaches into her purse, and I'm like kind of looking in the car at the passenger seat window, and she's got like wads of $100 bills, like a lot of $100 bills, and I was like, holy shit, what's going on? Yeah. and she pulls out 100 and hands it to me and says like, take this and put it towards the project. And I'm a 36-year-old dad. I have a job. I don't need $100. But like, I tried to reject it and say like, no, it's fine. We don't need it. And she got mad. She was not happy that I was rejecting it. She was like, she like snapped on me really quickly, and I was like, all right, I'll take it. And then she turned again, and then she was like super pleasant and super happy. And yeah, me and my buddy Connor, we went out for lunch with it that day. And so yeah, shout out to Dr. Jean Perez. I hope to bump into her again, but that was like a once in a lifetime crazy opportunity.
I feel like I saw her on TV as a kid. I feel like I
Probably.
did.
Yeah, she said she was. She said she taught Smokey Robinson in school, and I don't know. It's just like these stories and lore of South Central. Sometimes you're just like, wow, this is such a historic place with incredible stories.
Is that the most famous person you think you've ran into?
No, I ran into Steven Tyler at a gas station once. I think that would be it.
And how did that interaction go?
Oh, dude, I punish people for selfies. I'm not ashamed of it. I go for it. I sort of spotted him, and you do that kind of like, oh man, is that Steven Tyler kind of moment?
Yeah.
And you're like, no, it can't be, it can't be. But of course, the guy's like unmistakable. It was
Yeah.
like and but also like, what's he doing standing at the gas at
How
some gas
do you even
station?
go to a gas station as Steven Tyler? Like, I don't understand
know.
how you
I
can't
think-
function anymore, right?
I think honestly, I think he was having a bit of a weird moment. I think they had to cancel an Aerosmith tour because he felt sick or maybe something happened. And honestly, I do wonder if sometimes people, like famous people, go out in public just to kind of have their have their ego stroked a little bit for just a minute. As funny as that is.
Oh, there's got to be some people for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. And there was a woman who kind of got in line in front of me, and she was like a mega Aerosmith fan. And of course, I'm like Aerosmith's fine, but I'm not like
Yeah.
a crazy
Aerosmith's
Aerosmith fan. But they're great. They're great at what they do. But I always, it's always like my dad's music,
Mm-hmm.
And but he had Steven Tyler was wearing. He had about must have been like 10 necklaces on, and who knows? They were
I knew you
probably
were gonna say that.
they were probably from like Ardennes or something, like some of these like little cheap necklaces. And he takes one off and he hands it to the woman who was chatting with him, and like just gave it to her.
Oh my god!
And I was like, dude, like legendary move. Like I don't know if you plan that or if you do that all the time, but if not, like that's
why he wears so many.
Life. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, by the time he gets home, they're all gone.
Yeah.
Very generous man.
Exactly. Oh man, crack me up. But yeah, I got back to the car. I was just picking up. I think my wife sent me in to get a bottle of water or something, and I came back to the car and I was like, she's like, "What took you so long?" I'm like, "I just bumped into Steven Tyler." I showed her the picture on the phone. She's like, "Get out of here!" She's like, "I gotta stop sending you in places to get me stuff." I'm like, "Oh, that's what you get."
When you're at a gas station, what's your go-to gas station snack?
Oh man, I'm vegan, so it's kind of tough. Probably just like, shit, I don't know. Probably just a Red Bull, honestly, because I also drive an electric car, so I'm never at gas stations.
There you go.
Yeah, but yeah, Red Bull, a Red Bull for the long road trip, is always a nice one.
What's your go-to vegan snack? Let's do that.
Vegan snack. Oh, jeez, I don't know.
Vegan
Honestly,
snack recommend.
Vegan snack. I don't know. Maybe a pretzel or something.
Okay, fair enough. Pretzels are good. They do slap. A little pretzel, a little peanut butter.
Most boring answer you ever got. Yeah.
Do you have any pre-show rituals before you play?
I've done this before where I think a lot of musicians will say don't hit the bar too hard before you need to perform. I think that's a common mistake. I have a little playlist I like to listen to, which is it's a little bit hardcore, but it's a little bit, throw in some metal, throw in some hip hop, throw in some ambient stuff. It's maybe like a 20-minute thing I like to listen to, and it just gets me in the zone of like where I need to be. And I think I've like crafted that playlist in a way that I don't know. It's grown with me over the years, depending on whether it's going on stage or going into a big meeting at work or something, or a job interview, whatever it is. So that's my go-to. I call it. It's literally on Spotify, and it's called "Pump Me Up," and it's just my go-to. And some of it's corny, but it does the trick.
Yeah, whatever gets you there. Yeah, like I like to play like an arcade. Like if there's like the bar has like some sort of cabinet that I can jump on and play, I'd love to do that. But it's not like I need to play that, right? But it's just something that I like to just get really obsessed with. Like I'm gonna get as far as I can in this Street Fighter game, and then it just kind of removes my where I am at the moment and have to, kind of worry about the show later. That's what I like to do as far as a pre-show ritual.
That's smart. That kind of gets your mind away from it a bit. Also try not to eat too much. I think you have to kind of, before playing, you got to kind of time your day, which can be a little tricky when you have a long drive. You're often kind of having dinner after the show. And if you're headlining, that can be a long wait. So you got to kind of time that stuff out. I've not graduated yet to the. I think some people like to, especially vocalists, they like to have a tea or something.
The throat coats.
Yeah. It's funny. I saw Jesus Piece here in LA, and their singer Aaron is like a fucking beast. Yeah. And while other band members or other acts that night might have had other beverages on stage, he just had this steaming tea sitting on a Marshall amp.
What a professional!
Yeah, I loved it.
That just gives me the I don't want to see that fucking tea tip over. That's like
I have tea anxiety. Yeah.
Now I think I've only got one more question left in here for you. Let's say Monk had an unlimited budget for a rider. What would be in the green room waiting for you? What's your rock star dream rider? Oh,
geez. It'd be cool to have like a room converted into a sauna. I think that would be nice. Just somewhere totally, nice wood paneled, like Douglas fir space you could just crank up and, if it's not for the pre-show, maybe the post-show, that would be a good situation.
Right.
Yeah. Any snacks, anything that you have in mind for that? I guess vegan treats, I guess.
Pretzels.
Yeah, I'm a simple guy. Pretzels. Yeah, pretzels, Red Bull. Nice veggie tray would be nice. We had a few funny Vicious Cycle moments. Most of us were vegetarian or vegan, where we'd roll up to a show and we didn't even really have a rider, but you'd show up to this gigantic salami tray or something, and you're like, oh man, I'm so sorry, none of us are gonna eat this. I hope somebody does.
Yeah, that's great. That's just a simple sauna room with some vegan stuff. Yeah, no, I like it too.
Yeah.
Now, Frank, I wish we could talk to you all day, but we've already taken up an hour of your time. We really appreciate you doing this. Honestly, I love to get to know you over the hour. I want to also give a shout out to Matt Breezy that kind of made this happen. He's helped.
Shout out to Matt.
Booking all the stuff for you. He's the homie. He plays in Hellbent. Maybe one day in a perfect world we could get Hellbent and Monk on a show. That would be awesome. But until then. Yeah. Until then, we'll keep it simple. Is there anything you want to plug or give a shout outs to just before we let you go?
Oh geez, nothing in particular. Usually I'd have an up and coming band to shout out, but just be nice to yourself, be nice to others, take care of yourself, and have whoever, if you made it this far, thank you, and just know that we appreciate you.
Love that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Frank.
Cool. All right. See you guys. Thank you very much.
Oh, man, that was so good. That was such a good interview. Frank, again, thank you coming on the show. Please check out all the projects that he's been involved with, whether it's Vicious Cycles or Monk. Definitely check out Monk, actually. Monk is like the current one, and this is the one what we're talking about. So, yeah, so glad that we got to talk with him. Let's get into some weekly recommendations. Tyler, what do you have up on the docket this week?
Oh, well, we're doing it a little more impromptu than we usually would, but while we were talking to Frank, I remembered a very important band to me growing up, and it was the band that actually basically turned me vegetarian for close to 10 years. Should probably get back on that one day. But that was the band Remembering Never. They put out an album called God Save Us. The two songs in particular that were vegan anthems were Slaughterhouse Blues and Runner Up in a shit-eating contest. I think talking about Street Justice was reminding me of them too. But this album's full of great songs. You got Suicide Hotline on speed dial, Gangster Rap and Peppermint Schnapps, The Goddamn Busy Signal. Each song is very thematic. He retells stories of his mother going through abuse, what it's like to wait on hold when you're calling a suicide hotline, just very politically charged stuff. This might get cut out, but didn't the vocalist of Remembering Never pass away recently or something? Or am I just completely insane? One sec.
I don't know. I don't know.
I think I might be wrong about that. They might have also just put out another record. I get those two things mixed up in my head pretty consistently. Well, now I have to leave it in. But yeah, this album is from, what is the year on this? Like 2004, 2006, I think. Ferret Records stuff. If you're familiar with Remembering Never, you already sort of get it. This is like pummeling, politically driven street punk, but with like a heavy emphasis on like chuggy breakdowns and two-step riffs, and just a really compelling vocalist. Like a vocalist, just like I was saying with Mike in Street Justice, where you just like absolutely buy what they're putting down. Like they sound so authentic in their delivery. So yeah, definitely check out Remembering Never in general, but definitely check out the album God Save Us, my favorite one personally. How
That's
about you,
awesome.
Buckaroo?
We were talking earlier. I think we were talking about Chubb, or it may have even been during Monk. But we were talking about. I brought up some Australian rock bands, and I'm gonna have to suggest DZ Death Rays. They're an Australian two-piece. They've got a release from 2014 called Black Rat that is just kind of this like fuzz rock. It's very upbeat. There's great songs on it, like Reflective Skull. The first track, Black Rat, the title track, is like also super good. Like it just starts off with the do do do, and it just do like so it's a very songful song. You know how I like my songful songs. Yeah, there's a lot of tracks on this record are just it's a great time. And yeah, I would recommend DZ Death Rays with their record Black Rat.
Hell yeah. So I just want to take another moment to thank Frank for coming on. Very just kind dude. Said some very kind words to us after we were done recording. That guy just has a vibe that I'm down for. And I was a little more starstruck during that interview than I was expecting to be. So if I look like a deer shitting itself in headlights, that's what happened. But that was super sick. Thank you guys for checking this out. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Keep it real.
Take it easy.